We're now going to set up our scoring system so that we can eat the pellets and create a bonus cherry. So in the sprites, I've created a new sprite, sprite cherry, which is just 32 by 32. Origin point is centered. I've created an object from that, object cherry. I also have a font here to use with our scorekeeper. It's just using Arial, size 14 bold, and it is only using the numbers. And I'm going to create one more object. In previous games, we've been using an object scorekeeper to keep track of lives and points, but this object is going to keep track of a few more things. So it's going to be more than just a scorekeeper. So I'm going to create a new object, and I'm going to call this obj_control. And this control object is going to be very important for setting up each level. But just like our scorekeeper, we want to make this persistent so that its data carries over between each level. First, let's establish our lives and our score. So add event, create. We're going to come to the score tab, set lives to 3. We'll set score to 0, and then we're going to add a few other variables. So come to control, set variable. We are going to create the variable global.extra_life and set this to 1. We're going to create another variable and call this one global.cherry_count and set that to 0. In the original Pac-Man, a cherry would appear on screen after a certain amount of pellets had been eaten, and so we need something to keep track of that. So now we need to draw some of this stuff on screen, but first I forgot to mention there was one more sprite that I added. So over here in the sprites, I've created a sprite life counter, which uses a very small version of the Pac-Man sprite. It is 16 by 16, and its origin point is at 0, 0. So back in our object control, we will add an event, draw GUI. And over here in the score tab, we'll come to lives and draw life images. I'm going to give this an X of 10 and a Y of 3, and I will use that sprite life counter. So we can close that and then come down to the draw tab. We need to establish our font, so set font. We will use that font score, give it the right alignment. We will set color to white. And then back in the score tab, we will draw score at an X of 630 and a Y of 1. And then I'm going to get rid of that caption. So we're done with the control object. Now let's make it so that the object player can eat things. So open that up. And the first event we'll add is a collision with the object pill. And first we're going to see if we've eaten enough pills to make a cherry appear. Now there's going to be a lot of actions in here, so I'm going to come over to control and use comments so that I can keep things organized. So I'm going to draw one over, and I'm just going to say check cherry count. So first we're going to set a variable. We'll set global.cherry_count to 1 relative, so we'll add 1 to the count. And in Pac-Man, the first cherry would appear after 70 dots had been eaten. So let's test variable and see if global.cherry_count at a value of 70 greater than or equal to. We'll drag in some blocks, and for simplicity's sake, we'll just make a cherry appear every 70. So once this is hit, we'll just reset the count. So set a variable, global.cherry_count, set back to 0, and then we'll create a cherry. So main1, create instance, create our object cherry at an X of 320, Y of 384. Your coordinates might be different depending on how you set up your room. So now let's actually change the score. I'm going to set a new comment. Set score. So first we'll come to score, set score to 10 relative. We're going to see if we've earned enough points for an extra life. So come to control, test variable, test for the variable score equal to a value of global dot extra life times. Now, in Pac-Man, you get an extra life at every 10,000 points. But for testing purposes, we'll lower this. So I'm just going to make it every 100 points. Now we'll say greater than or equal to. Okay. Drag in some blocks. And first I want to add an extra life. So come to score, set lives. Set it to 1 relative. And then we want to increment our extra life variable. So control, set variable, global dot extra life to 1 and relative. And then finally we want to destroy the pill. So come to main 1, destroy instance, destroy other. So it destroys the pill. Now even though the object power pill is using the pill here as its parent, we are going to have it act differently. So we're going to need a separate collision event for that as well. So let's just duplicate this event and make it the collision with the object power pill. And for now it's going to be pretty similar. All we want to do is change our setting the score to 50 points instead of 10. Later we'll come back here and add some more actions so that we can turn our ghosts into scared ghosts. But we have one more object to test for, which is the cherry, and so we're going to just reuse all of this score code. So select all of this as well as the final destroy instance, copy it, and we will create a new event, collision with the object cherry, paste all this in, and the cherry is going to have a score of 100. And that should be it for the player, so we can close this. Let's reopen our room, and we need to add in our object control. We can just add that to the top left corner, but we need to make sure that the object control is created before some of our other objects because it is holding on to variables that they need. So I'm actually going to delete this and delete the Pac-Man, and then I'm going to put in the control object and then put in the player again. We've had the missing variable issue before, so definitely make sure that your object control is the first one you place. But because it is a persistent object, you only need one. So don't place it in any other room that you create after this. Alright, so we can close that and test the game. So I can go ahead and eat all the pills. You can see up there in the top right that the points are going up. I've already added an extra life. And after I eat a certain amount of pills, the cherry pops up in the middle there. So when I eat this, I should get an extra 100 points, as well as 10 for the dot that is underneath it. And there we go. Now, clearly I'm racking up way too many extra lives. So before we close here, I'm just going to reopen the object player, and in our collisions, with this score greater than or equal to extra life times 100, I'm going to change that to 10,000. And I need to do that for the pill, the power pill, and the cherry. Alright, so right now, clearing the room of pills will do nothing. So before we move on to the rather complicated setup of our ghost object, we'll move on to creating a title screen and setting up what happens when you clear the room.